today we have Sara Parkins, who is principal second violin of the orchestra, and Don Foster, who is principal clarinet.
Throughout the orchestra, the depth of talent is incredible.
Oh, yeah. Sara is unbelievable violinist, kind of a core member of the Los Angeles recording and new music and chamber music scene. And she has a Grammy for a box set that was recorded, I think in the 90s, I'm not sure. And I better remember the quartet. Was it the Angelus Quartet? I believe it was the Angelus Quartet. And it was for a full box set of Haydn string quartets, which won the Grammy. She's also in the Eroica Trio. And like I said, a staple in new music. She plays in the Eclipse Quartet.
And she plays principal second violin with us.
Exactly.
And I am always so thrilled when she's there. She has the most beautiful tone. She's got the most incredible energy.
Yeah.
She's absolutely winsome as a personality.
Firecracker.
She's incredible. So, you know, we are so lucky to have her playing with us whenever she can. And quite a lot of the time she's traveling, doing other things.
Right. And then Don Foster, I don't even know where to begin with Don. I've known him for over 25 years. He's principal clarinet of the orchestra. He teaches a course on film music at a junior college out in Moreno Valley. And I mean, his resume, I don't even know where to begin. And he's one of the principal called clarinetists for John Williams and for other students. So you've heard him on everything. And he plays in the LA Opera as well. He's just all over the place.
And you know what's great about Don is that he is not only offering the most exquisite musicianship, he has got a great mind for helping us focus on our mission, helping us understand the relationship between staff and board and musicians. He's a very active collaborator with all those different interest groups, as it were. Right. And he communicates really well with his colleagues as well. Mm-hmm. So he's a great voice of reason and a really smart mind when it comes to community relations.
And that's rare. It's rare to find someone that has mastered their instrument and gone and knows that much about all the aspects of the musical, whatever, community, administration. And sometimes those kind of people aren't even interested, but he is.
Yeah.
He knows about every aspect of the music making process. It's incredible.
Hey!
Oh my gosh, Sara.
Hello.
Are we disturbing your lunch?
Brilliant.
Brilliant. Hi, David.
Hi. That's so nice to see you.
David, is that your stand or mine? Because look what your copy of Bach looks just like mine.
Is that the original?
I got it directly from JS.
That's hilarious. I love it.
It's pretty, it's been around for a long time. I only brought it out because I was going to show everyone what I've been doing lately.
Yeah. Well, that's very good, isn't it? One of my favorite editions of Bach is with a printed version on the left and with the original on the right.
Yeah.
Or whatever original is considered.
Actually, David, that's what this is. Oh, but this is in the back.
Yeah. Oh, isn't that great?
Yeah.
But it's so fascinating because then you can start to make your own choices.
That is true. Yeah. Well, David doesn't know this, but along with being a classical violinist, I've always wanted to also explore improvisation. And when I was living in New York, I was living in the Lower East Side, and my older sister, who's a composer, opened up a whole new world to me. And I used to play at the Knitting Factory and all these different places where it was all about expressing yourself in a different way, not improvising with changes and a jazz thing, but jazz in a different way. So then I moved to LA.
Hey guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Shoot, I'm telling my soliloquy.
Keep going, Sara.
Okay, so then I had to make a living, and I do what I'm better at, and that's playing classical music. But I've always had this urge, this feeling, this desire to want more musically.
Yeah.
And but a girl has to make a living. So
until she's in quarantine. And
so
then
I'm quarantined, and now that I'm not running all over the place and working, I can actually take some time. I mean, I have to also deal with the fear of not making money, which is definitely something that I think most of us are wrestling with. Like the bank account dwindling, because I'm doing different projects now that actually require paying people. So
True.
I do want to put a shout out to, she subs in the orchestra, Julie Rogers. I hope it's okay if I mention something. She wrote me for my birthday gift.
Oh.
And they're F-U hard. But this is one of my favorite pieces. Leonard Cohen, Hallelujah.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Yeah, but they're technically very challenging, so I'm still like working it out. And,
can you work one up to perform for the Zoom?
I will. Of course, this is an old favorite,
Can't see it. It's too
Oh.
over. What is it called?
incredible.
Oh, Amazing Grace.
Amazing Grace.
Great.
Well, maybe I can have Julie on to talk about the book, and she can get it out there.
Sure. I mean,
And obviously, it's handmade.
but I never had time to learn these. I was so busy, like with the Eroica Trio and making sure I have Beethoven Triple memorized, and now I have time. And then I have this.
Ooh, nice.
Wow.
Oh my
nice.
gosh, you are really.
Are you playing those on violin?
She's in going down a whole nother road these days.
That's so great.
Are you playing the Charlie Parker solos on violin?
Well, actually, what I'm learning now is I'm listening a lot to Strange Fruit, Billie Holiday, and trying to play it on the violin. I don't know if do you know that song that she sings? Of course, everyone does. Yeah, excuse me.
May I suggest, Sarah, you check out Cassandra Wilson's version.
Okay.
Of Strange Fruit. It's much smokier. I mean, obviously, the Billie Holiday is the definitive. It was written for her.
Right. But the nuance in the vocal aspect, and to try to emulate on the violin, I don't know if it's different on your instrument, because your instrument is all about breathing and
we're sort of a traditionally non-vibrating instrument. We're already at a loss.
Yeah.
Unless you're Betty Goodman, but.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of like tear up every time I listen to the song, but that's okay.
Dawn,
yeah, I'll listen to her rendition. Yeah.
What's going on with your school and online teaching? Has everything moved to online in Moreno Valley?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally. But, I've been doing the online thing forever. But the problem has been the face-to-face students that have disabilities.
Oh.
I have a blind student.
Oh my.
Suddenly now online. How does that work? So there are these e-readers that can read to him, but it's so challenging. And, he's in chemistry and he's in political science. And I just can't imagine having 18 units suddenly having to be everything like this.
Boy.
And then of course there's a whole litany of instructors that don't even know how to turn a computer on, then all of a sudden trying to teach online. Anyway,
it's interesting. Delana's been teaching online more than ever, and she was resistant to it for a long time because her teaching has required touching people and finding out where the stresses are and relieving them. And so now it's a very different relationship she's sort of had to forge. It's a sort of visual, sort of intellectual, assumptive kind of diagnosis. It's like, yes, it looks like it is. Can you tell me if it is? Yes, I guess it must be. I mean, it's not easy, I think, to make a transition. And then at the same time, she says that a lot of her younger students are just so enamored of the whole process that they're practicing a lot and they're having a great time coming on camera.
Wow.
It's sweet, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm seeing both extremes. Some of my students are knocking things out. It used to take them months. They're done in a week, like a whole orchestra piece. I was like,
Oh.
keep this in mind.
Are you teaching
Oh.
viola or composition, right?
Composition. I have my private students, and I started teaching at Harvard Westlake just as a visiting instructor. I'm teaching a class on 12-tone. And I was
Ooh.
right in the middle of it when this happened. I was already challenged enough teaching these kids what 12-tone music is. And they're writing 12-tone sonatas for me for solo viola.
Could I take a lesson?
Yeah, you definitely can. Please.
That's like the opposite of what Sarah's doing.
Yeah.
I know we're going the opposite direction. Well, they meet. They come back around and they meet.
Well,
Brett,
Brett,
oh, go
no,
ahead.
go on. Oh, no, Brett mentioned that I reached out to him because I'm interested in writing like my own cadenza for like concertos, like Mozart concertos. And I guess at Juilliard and nowadays, that's what they're teaching the kids, like to write their own cadenzas. But we're in a weird generation where we were sort of doing more of the traditional old school kind of thing. And then these new crops of kids came up and they can write their own freaking cadenza. They can do anything. And it's really challenging. It's really challenging. Yeah, if you,
Sarah,
yeah.
Looking back over where I didn't kind of pursue composition as early as I could, the one I got into was the best thing for ears, for all your musicality. So if I was in charge, every student playing an instrument would be required to compose.
Amen.
You know what, Brett?
can't
You're
believe
lying. You've been a closet composer since you were 15, and you know it.
Oh.
Yeah, but I didn't have formal training. I was doing it in the closet like I was doing a couple other things.
Yeah.
So,
That's in the vault.
but I'm just saying, like, you're going down the right path. Like, there's no negative to this.
No.
Right.
Except for my own personal, like, perfection thing that I have in me as being a violinist and, you know, being schooled in that way of everything has to be perfect, you know, and it's hard to let that go, to let any critique go, you know, about.
But I think we all face that all the time.
We all face it.
You know, it's like at some point in your life as a musician, you've got to recognize that you're not going to be perfect and you've got to deal with it.
It reminds me a lot of, and I can't believe I keep bringing the drinking up, but
Please.
you know, when you're forced to sort of try to speak a foreign language, the first thing that's the problem is you.
Absolutely.
I'm having the same thing now.
It has absolutely nothing to do with the language.
Yeah.
And then a couple of glasses of wine and suddenly you're pretty
Right.
It's crazy how that works. And that stems from our absurd, impossible, must be perfect concept with our playing.
But we were trained to be that, right?
Right.
Insecurity.
No,
I was going to go.
I'll never forget. Actually, it's so funny, David. One of the first times I ever got bumped up to principal clarinet at Pasadena. This is, you know, unfortunately, I don't believe you ever got to meet her, one of the great clarinetists, Emily Bernstein. So she had a conflict with the LA Opera and decided she was going to go ahead and do the opera. And then this was going to be my first bump up. And it was the Hinastera variation.
Oh, my.
So that would make or break you.
And of course I was, you know, I mean, but first of all, I was also a young whippersnapper. I had that shit under my fingers. And
Yeah.
but I did screw up. I screwed up one bar. And I spent more time pushing myself and beating myself up over 1.2 seconds of time than the whole concert, which also had something massive like Rococo variations and other things. But anyway.
Why do we do that?
Why do we do that? Why do we do that?
I mean,
Is it a habit?
Over a decade. I did it ever since I was a kid. Well, I'm sure it stems lots of different reasons. Well, I won't get into my reasons, but I did have an experience like that when I was at Yale. I won the concerto competition. I'd prepared so well, and I was doing the Saint-Saëns, and I got to the top of the first climax, in sixth, and it was maybe 1.5 seconds, as you said, Don, out of tune, and I checked out for the rest of the performance.
Yeah.
I disappeared. I was on automatic pilot. I walked off stage. I said, well, okay, that was a waste of time. I listened to the tape 10 years after. It was actually really good. I mean, thank goodness I'd prepared. You know, if I hadn't been physically and to a certain extent mentally prepared, I mean, that I didn't just stop playing.
Right.
You know, then it would have been a disaster, but it wasn't.
Right. So Brett, I have to share one thing with you.
Yes. What did I do now?
I was I was lucky enough to be invited to a meeting with Laura Unger and David and Rose and Amy Preston on the phone. And when they showed us the 2021 season.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, there on the last concert is Brett Banducci's name. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think I audibly squealed or something.
I would hope so. That would be
or
wonderful
whatever.
if you didn't.
And I tried to explain. I mean, Brett, how long have we known each other? 30 years? I mean, I'm
A little less.
40 years
Yeah.
old.
Yeah.
I mean,
26, yeah.
I think it's more. I mean, I think we've known each other since basically adulthood. But
So a couple of years ago.
Yeah, which started for me last week.
It hasn't started yet, but anyway.
but that's the other thing about our industry, right? And Sarah, you and I have known each other for at least 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's anyway, I could not be more thrilled that we're doing a piece.
Same here, Brett.
And what was great is my first thought was, can we play it?
Exactly.
Keeping it
So
going.
hard.
I know.
Oh gosh. Well, that was kind of one of my ulterior motives with this podcast. Was like I looked at the score and I was like, Brett, you need to ingratiate yourself to the audience and the players now, because you're going to have mutiny in your hands.
Hey, David. Speaking of Pasadena, just
What?
just
For
just
French
for
horn? Oh, I'm
French
sorry.
horn, 2 harps, 46 strings.
Split, double string orchestra,
Yeah, basically.
like a stereophonic string orchestra.
Oh my god.
so David, just for fun, tell us what's going to happen.
With his piece?
No, just like we'll have that concert on April 24th, or whatever that is, next 2021. By 2021,
Oh my goodness.
can we just
see what you're
fantasize
saying.
like that things are going to be back to some
Oh,
normality?
well, yes, of course. In my Pollyanna-ish optimistic way, we will have been long back to work and happily performing for thousands of people again. Or
It's going to take a while.
we will be playing in large spaces with big separations between people, with perhaps smaller orchestras. I have no idea how it's going to be. It's really hard to know. But this is the moment when we should really, you know, we have to be so grateful to our donors for hanging in there with us. These, you know, people that owe nobody anything, that just love music, that love musicians, and they're the ones that are going to be continuing to give the gift of music to our communities. And it's you know, we rely on them. And the world relies on this sort of fulfilling this need for creativity.
Yeah.
What's interesting, you know, you think of previous war times and what it did to the arts, and how things changed so dramatically after people have gone through enormous crises. And it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this, whether it's something that is, you know, shared online, whether things go more to chamber music, whether there's more composition by people like Sarah, or, you know, is everyone just going to like pop music, or are people going to want to find music that's going to be deeply expressive and say something about our times? Well, of course that's going to happen, because that's what art does in any time. It reflects the emotional.
My prediction is that seats are going to sell out. You won't be able to get into a restaurant. Everyone's just going to want to go out.
Yeah, I agree.
Be together and go to the movies and go to the symphony and go to have
Pasadena might need to add a concert.
right or something. It's just, but
Right.
I mean, it may be short-lived, but I think there will be a surge of this kind of social. You know, I read a horribly disturbing thing about South Korea, about how, you know, they managed to handle the COVID thing pretty well, but it's because they're actually steeped in a culture of isolation, where you go even to do karaoke by yourself.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Where you're not ordering your latte from a person, you're ordering it from a robot. And your actual inner contact with a person is so limited, and it's clearly socially a problem. I mean, relationships are impossible. I mean, intimacy.
Yeah, with a robot. I'd like to have that robot right now, though. Is that a terrible thing to say?
You don't want the robot, you want the mocha.
Robot, get in here.
Hey, why don't we do a quick little trip down memory lane for Don in Europe playing chamber music?
Oh.
What was that, Don?
Tell us a little bit about your recent. You were away in Europe playing chamber music. I saw wonderful postings, and it sounded like the trip of a lifetime.
Well, it was work, and someone has to do it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you right away, what really made it was that the cellist was John Waltz.
Yes.
So that already makes it a thing. No, so and it's so funny because looking back on, of course, what's been going on in our world, it was a cruise ship. And, but it wasn't just any cruise ship. It's the highest rated cruise line in the world, 5 stars in a row for the last 6 years. It's the MS Europa 2, which is run by a German cruise line company or a tourist company called Hapag-Lloyd, which you might have heard of. But it was kind of an insane, it was 18 days at sea, and we started in Tenerife, the Canary Islands, and then went to the west of Africa, across, did the St. Bart's and those islands, and then eventually ended up in Miami somehow. But it was just miraculous.
When was that, Don?
That was in November.
Oh, okay.
And what did the passengers think? Did they love the music, passengers?
Oh, and then on top of it, the programs were just incredible. The Brahms.
What did you play?
Brahms Clarinet Trio. There was a quartet. They did Dvorak. They did. It'll come to me in a second. I'll come back to that. But one of the things we did, David, I think I may have mentioned this to you, really interesting, is we did the Schubert lead, Shepherd on the Rock.
Yes, you did mention
but
that.
with the cello playing the soprano line.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we had.
I was really impressed by that.
We had an actor who was on the ship read the poem in German, because it's an all German crew, all German passengers. And other than a couple of spots where the spelling was wrong because the cello was lower than the clarinet, it's perfect. It's absolutely
incredible. Just incredible.
Wow.
But it was amazing.
Well, that did look like a very special thing. I mean, that's one of the things, isn't it, about being a musician? There's such an extraordinary variety of things that we can dip in and out of. I mean, from the studios to orchestra to chamber music. And as you said, Sarah, the relationship with the audience is key, and it's different in each of those sorts of environments, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you're involved with an audience, you're involved with your audience on a cruise.
Right.
You actually talk to them, and
yeah, no, you're right. All of the stacks are, the deck is stacked against you. It's acoustically horrible. It's,
yeah.
It's meant for magic tricks and things. It's not meant for wrong.
Right.
And so, you've got to do your best, and then you develop a kind of a relationship because you're dining with these people. Even though we were considered crew, we were upgraded to being, allowed to be seen with the passengers.
Yeah.
But it was really heartwarming where the next day at breakfast they would say, splendid concert. It just, and so the interaction was not just then and there. It was the duration. It was really amazing.
Very nice.
Incredible.
Sara, what are some of your most sort of heartwarming experiences as a musician? Has it been through chamber music mostly, or as a soloist, or what do you?
I don't do a lot of soloing, but I think that's a great question, because the first thing that comes to me is the intimacy of playing chamber music and actually being able to see your audience. And then like I tend to play better actually, or feel more of a connection when I know people in the audience even. And like I'm playing for them or something. But then I've experienced in orchestra playing connections too. I remember when I was at Tanglewood and playing with Bernstein, it was his I think it was Sibelius. What's the one? Da, 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 da,
Five.
Five? Is it
Oh,
five?
yeah.
Or is it? Okay. Whatever it was, Bernstein was having an orgasm.
No, it was two. Sorry.
Okay.
My mistake.
Da, 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 ya, da, da, yum, ba, da.
Yeah.
And I remember playing that, and when you're younger, maybe things are more visceral, but I remember like bursting out into tears after it was done. Like, and I still have those experiences. Yeah. Maybe that's why I miss playing with an audience. Like it doesn't do the same thing for me to practice on my own. I really need that connection.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. Delana said the same thing. I'll go off and just play some Bach for myself. Yeah. And she says, I don't get that at all. That means nothing to me. I won't go off and play Bach. I'll only do it if there's an audience.
It's so funny, David, because I know, for example, I was going through some archival footage of Jessie Norman. And, obviously she's whatever you want, controversial figure, larger than life, amazing.
She's larger than life, yeah.
But she actually said her favorite process was rehearsing. Which is, it's so funny. I feel like I think that too, but it obviously depends on the right circumstances. But anyway, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I love rehearsing. I mean, the rest of my life is in tatters, but rehearsals I like really organized.
Yeah.
I like cleaning. Actually, I'm pretty good at washing up too, but I love cleaning a score and just sort of finding how people can listen and sort of fix things themselves. That's one of the things that I just love about the Pasadena Symphony, that the orchestra is so keen to get the work done in a short period of time, and it always improves so quickly, and the performances are always so exciting. So the whole process is really pretty mind-blowing.
Right.
And no one has a choice.
No choice, that's right.
Concerts in one day, which we all managed to cope with, which, David, I don't know how you do it, because you also have to do the concert talks and then the socializing and you mentioned sometimes you're managing to eat a bowl of soup and have a 5-minute nap. And
well, I always get 20 minutes.
Okay.
I always get 20 minutes. That's all I can function on. When I was in the National Youth Orchestra of Great Britain, we always had to spend an hour in our rooms, whether we slept or not, on concert days. And that's when I got in the habit of just always taking a nap on the afternoon. I mean, I always figure, even on a rehearsal day, actually, I figure that you, Sara, and you, Don, have been working all day and teaching and playing and thinking and driving. I figured somebody has got to be awake.
Right.
so that's how I justify my 20-minute nap.
Yeah.
Well, I've always envied countries that have it in their culture with sort of a forced riposa. you know, it's just like, no, we shut down between 1:30 and 2:30. That's just
Right.
Oh, I go to Spain. You were saying about studying French. I've been studying Spanish now that I'm no longer the principal guest conductor of an orchestra in Oviedo in the northern part of Spain. But when I was first handed the rehearsal schedule there to fill out, I didn't know what I was looking at. It was, these people are civil servants, so it has to look on paper as if they go to work every day. So it starts at 10 and finishes at 4:30 every day through. Actually, they don't perform on Saturday and Sunday because it's a weekend. So the performances are on Thursday and Friday. But on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, there are hours and hours of rehearsals, but you don't rehearse more than an hour and 15 minutes. You have 20 minutes here, you have an hour and a half there, you have 2.5 there, and maybe you finish at 4:30 or finish at 3:30. It was so confusing, but it was actually rather wonderful because you end up in the coffee shop with people, you know, regularly, and you go and have a long lunch, and it was just delightful.
Sounds fantastic.
Delightful. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? You know, state-sponsored arts, they have their issues too, but there are some great things about it. I did contemporary music that it would be hard to program here. I mean, what's your experience of contemporary music in LA, Brett, and how you have intersected with that?
Sarah could talk to this much more than I can. She's in a modern string quartet.
Yep.
How I've intersected, well, actually, past year I stopped intersecting with it. I was like, I should be home writing.
But you attend concerts, Brett. You're so good about going.
I did, but I stopped. I stopped because I was like, what am I doing running around town? I'm at these small venues. The entire audience is just a bunch of composers that want their pieces done. I was always there to support my colleagues, actually.
Right.
So I was like, Brett, stop. That's why I'm saying this, for me, the COVID thing, giving me boundaries. Like, just sit in your room and do what you're supposed to do, and don't always be looking for some distraction. Right. Anyways, Sarah, you talk about.
Well, I mean, yes, I play in a quartet where we just play pretty much 99% of the time composers that are still alive. And often we have said yes to pieces. People ask us to play something and we agree to it. And it turns out they're maybe not the greatest, and they're really hard to play. They're really technically difficult, but we've made this commitment. And there's usually something you can find about it that you can connect to. But it can be challenging for the audience. It really can. And like Brett said, most of the people in those audiences are composers or friends of people that want to support those composers. So I really believe in doing it, though.
Don't you find that sort of like, you know, period instrument pieces?
Right. Yeah.
There's an audience that's specific to that.
Right.
So Jacaranda, Brett, and Sarah, both of you played, you know, we've played together. And in fact, it was an interesting conversation that David and we, in this little meeting where they introduced the 2021 season, about these sort of forgotten, Sibelius. I mean, when was the last time Pasadena played Sibelius? And I think we did the Violin Concerto once, a few seasons back. But Janacek, where has he gone?
What happened to Grieg? Grieg's another one, the piano concerto.
But then there's these contemporary pieces that are no longer contemporary because they're 80 years old, like Lee.
Yeah.
Or, you know, anyway, I've said my...
Well, I mean, also my other sister is a composer, and she does a lot of electronic stuff and is an improviser. And I think it's really important. She has a vision, as most composers do. And whether I see it or not, I guess I feel like I want to be open to help them realize that. And obviously they believe and have composed this, you know, for better or for worse. So I'm willing to be open, I guess.
But it's a very
Can be
hard thing,
hard.
isn't it, for an audience, because it's like they're meeting a new person for the first time, and the new person is very opinionated.
Yeah.
And you may like them or you may not,
Right.
but in a year's time, they may be your best friend.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Well, you know what I always
very
say
hard
too to the
relationship.
audience? I've had some moments of having to scold an audience because when you put the contemporary piece with, you know, say Beethoven, that same audience that's vilifying the new piece would have vilified Beethoven 5.
Amen.
This is
Yeah.
what no one realizes. But
Right.
they had 200 years of working it out. So I always tell them, you're here for something different. You're here to kind of reflect the piece and find something else out about yourself. I've noticed that when you connect with the audience and then you present them your so-called crazy piece, there's a whole different story.
Completely
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I also
And it helps the audience like hold on to something. Oh, I'm going to listen to that. And it's helpful, and it's helpful for me to be reminded too.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I also deprogramming with the audience, because we live in a world where it's just okay to surround yourself with all these things you want, which, yes, but I think there's another reason you come to music. And it's not just because I went to have a nice lunch, then I went to wine tasting, then I had a nice dinner, now I want to hear a nice concert. And I'm saying that for me is partly okay, but maybe you're there for another reason you don't even realize, or maybe you can expand yourself by opening up that kind of palette of reasons why you're there.
We have to serve a bifold mission, which is reflective on the past and is hopefully creating a legacy for the future.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the contemporary music of today is reflecting all the different aspects of society we live in. You know, whether it's deeply atonal or whether it's fluffy and like ice cream. This is our society today, and that to me is, if I could say, what are we trying to sell? That's what I would want to sell. I would want to sell the fact that we are reflecting our culture, and that's what we should get people really excited about. Come and see your symphony reflect who you are. And it might be pleasant, it might occasionally not be so pleasant. You know, the great music of the past, as Brett said, has been vilified and then accepted as taste has changed and as people understand. And, you know, but that to me is what's so exciting about art and what's so critical about art. It's like the hats change from generation to generation, but the stories basically stay the same. The stories are the same. I mean, we're going through special circumstances now, but it's no different from any other time when there's been a plague or a lockdown or censorship. I think that we've turned the tide about what is contemporary music. I don't think people are so worried about a time bomb going off in a concert hall like things were so volatile in the 60s and 70s, where people listened to things they didn't like and just wouldn't come back, or they walked, you know. Now we've got such a broad palette of musical styles that's generally very appealing, and I'm grateful to the movie industry for creating this sort of new awareness of what an orchestra can do, what it can be, and how it can reflect our emotions.
Well, obviously, one of the things that's to be applauded with Pasadena is the effort to do a contemporary living person.
Oh my God!
Concert.
Well, that's all David.
That's
Thanks, David. Yeah.
miraculous.
Well, thank you, and it feels so little, and it just, you know, I mean, I love the canon. I love the great music. I feel that I learn something all the time from it. But when I go back and listen to recordings of the Pasadena Symphony, and I listen to how people eat up performing contemporary music, I want the whole audience to get that this is a feat of virtuosity and commitment and a voice of our times, and that's what I really want people to get and understand and be thirsty for.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And maybe this time of reflection during you know, COVID-19, you know, maybe this is going to produce work that people will want to hear. We'll say, well, what was Brett thinking about during that time
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
this is what I was thinking about.
Oh no! We lost David.
I just offended him.
You guys, I'm gonna sign off, okay?
I am too.
Okay.
You
Okay.
Thank you guys so much.
Mwah.
So Brett.
Thank you. This was
Yeah.
really nice of you to spend the time.
Oh,
Yeah, let's talk
Likewise.
about solos and but thanks
Okay.
so much, you guys.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks, you guys.
Bye, David.
Bye.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
later. Bye.